Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Monday, July 21st. I am your host, Josh Newberg, and we have some major developments to cover. It was a busy weekend in the recruiting world. We're going to break it all down for you, but first, do me a favor. You're getting dangerously close to that 100K number. Look at that. Why don't you jump on board and hit subscribe? It's going to be a busy season of recruiting. All right. Big show today. We got no Steve Wiltfong. He is on summer vacation with the family. Good for him. But fear not. We got national analyst here at Rivals, Adam Gorney, on today's show. So let's get started. Being a West Coast guy, I figure we're going to bring you in, ease you in with a USC segment. So let's talk about the Trojans' number one class. USC has the number one class in America. Maybe not the hottest team that we've covered this summer, but how did the Trojans get here and stay here in this number one spot?
Yeah, when March, April, and May is when you do all your work, all the hay is in the barn for June and July, and you're okay. I mean, you're sitting pretty. Number one, 31 commits overall. Their only commit in July is a big one, obviously, Booby Feaster, but that was their only commit so far in the month of July. Only 3 in June in Luke Wayfield, Talanoa Ely, Peyton Dyer. They did all their work in the spring when no one was looking, when everyone was, setting up all the stuff for the June official visits. That's when they had all their kids on campus. They loaded up across the board, flipping kids all over the place. And that's how they've been able to hang on. Now, other teams will make a run here. I mean, there are teams still loading up still, this week alone, there are going to be some big commitments. But that's how they did their work. They got it done early. They got it done often in March, April, and May, and then they kind of sat back in June and July and just picked it at some of the meat left on the bone.
But we've seen USC get off to hot starts. We've seen this happen before, and we've seen it all fall apart, sometimes really before summer even hits. Now we're exiting summer. Trojans are still number one. So what changes have you seen at USC under Lincoln Riley when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, and USC fans in July are excited, and then the fall season starts and all their Southeast commits start hitting games at Georgia and Alabama, and they start getting very, very nervous. And I actually talked to Lincoln Riley about this last signing day, and I was like, are you guys going to change how you approach this? Are you going to try to get kids on campus earlier, later? What are you going to do during the fall? And he basically, said that they're going to stick with the plan. They're going to recruit the Southeast. They know that some kids are going to flip at some point. If you're from a small country town in Georgia, you come to LA and you absolutely love it. And then, mama's cooking isn't down the road. So that becomes very tough. But what I think they've done over the offseason is put that recruiting staff together. That's one of the best, if not the best in the country. And not only one of the most talented in Chad Bowden and his group, but the most aggressive. They're going after guys. They're getting them locked up. They're showing them the love. And by the love, I mean, they're showing them the money. And, they're making connections much deeper with a lot of kids than they had in previous years. It's nice to bring Elijah Griffin in and Justice Terry and get some commitments and stuff, but they're really delving deep into the kids that want to be out in California, that really feel like that they can be away from home for that long. And maybe they lose some here and there along the way, but I don't think it's going to be like the purge in 2025.
Right. So looking at this commit list, it is absolutely loaded. What position group do you feel is the strength of this class?
Yeah, one of the things that I think USC realized in year one in the Big Ten is, they need to have their offensive linemen over 300 pounds easily. They need bigger defensive linemen. Speed is nice, but when, a guy from Iowa or Penn State or Ohio State put a finger on you and you kind of fall over, they need bigger guys on the defensive line too. So I think their line recruitment was a focus, and they hit it out of the park both ways. They went to the Midwest for Braden Jones. They went to Texas for Jamion Winfield along the defensive line. They went to Jersey for Luke Wayfield, who looks like he could be, in a college program already. They flipped Tom Tupoi from Mater Dei. Yeah. They stayed local for some guys. They took a shot on Andrew Williams, who's a city kid, who's super athletic, but hasn't, sort of been under the radar so far in his recruitment. And then on the offensive line, they get Keeney Pepe, who's a California native who's playing at IMG, who's really bulked up over the last few years. They get Eason Taffa, a big kid, versatile offensive lineman who can play inside, outside. They go to Folsom for Vlad Diakonov, who, needs to continue to put on weight, but is super athletic and can get physical. So I think that their line play was most important. Lincoln Riley's going to run great offense. He's going to have a great quarterback, productive wide receivers. You can go to California for all those guys, but they went everywhere for defensive linemen, especially offensive linemen as well. And I think that's where they really bulked up.
All right. So when it comes to this class, sitting here at number 1 with 31 current commitments, do you feel that they're going to add any more, or is this more about protecting what you got heading into the season?
Yeah, what's incredible is they're at 31, and I remember the days when you couldn't go over 25. It was like,
those are
I think
long
some
gone.
SEC teams get the long gone. Yeah, as long as the bank account is still open, unlike mine, you could still get guys. And I've been told they're going after tight end and safety. So they already have Mark Bowman, obviously,
right,
the marquee player in the class, but another tight end in the class and then another safety. So I think they could stretch to 33. Let's kind of be in that 32 to 33 ballpark, and that's probably where the class ends up.
All right, so a couple additions. USC fans, talk to us. How do you feel? Do you think this class finishes number 1, and who are your top targets heading into the season? Let us know. All right, let's talk a little Longhorn recruiting. Texas surges into the top 5 on Sunday with the addition of Derek Cooper. Adam Gorney and I were on live for that one. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and watch it. Were you surprised, Adam, that Texas won this without even an official visit? And Cooper did take officials. I mean, he went to Ohio State, FSU, Georgia, Bama, Miami. He took a bunch of officials, just not to the school that he committed to.
Right. Yeah, he definitely traveled around a lot and saw a lot of things. Was I surprised? No, because down the stretch, it seemed like Texas had surged right to the top and was going to be difficult to beat. But Georgia felt really good about this in the last week at least. And then he's a South Florida kid. Miami obviously opens the pocketbook. So I wasn't, I was sort of surprised that Miami didn't kind of catch on a little bit more. But I was told down the stretch, and who knows if this is sort of sour grapes or not, but that Mom was very involved in this. NIL was very, very involved in this. And, some people that cover the program even said that, a big offer was made late. And that's perfectly fine. It's within all the means of recruiting these days. And if Texas wants to do it, God bless them. He's a very, very talented player. But Georgia, again, took a little bit of a lump there because they felt pretty decent about this heading into the decision.
Yeah. So Diabell was added to this class early on. He was kind of the cornerstone that this class was built around. But let's talk summer wins. I mean, we had some big wins by Texas. What was the most surprising to you? I mean, there was Tyler Atkinson, Richard Wesley, Derek Cooper, James Johnson, the flip from Georgia. What was the most surprising to you?
Yeah, the list is super long. I mean, we could go down. we have a Rite Aid sheet of how many great players Texas got over the summer. But I think the combination of getting Richie Wesley, who had all of the drama around Oregon, to go there on the last weekend of June and make his commitment and kind of close it down and say he wants to be drama-free, and then getting James Johnson to flip right after that. That combination of defensive linemen will bode very, very well for the Longhorns over the long term, along with all the other guys that they got along the defensive line, Vodney Cleveland and Dylan Berryman and Corey Wells. Like that right there is your starting lineup for the defensive line in years to come. But getting Wesley to commit right after, like a month after all that stuff happened with Oregon, and then getting Johnson to flip from Georgia, definitely huge for the Longhorns, and I think the biggest move of the summer.
And they might not be done yet. We know Jake Krull is still out there on the board. Justin Wells has come on this channel and talked about maybe flipping a Malachi Lee, Isaiah Williams. So that being said, if Texas has a big season, do you think the Horns could finish number 1 again in recruiting?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think that they're done. I think they're certainly happy where they're sitting right now. And as you go down the list of commits, you're like, man, these guys are really, really talented. It looks like a number 1 class right now. It feels like it's a number 1 class right now. But, he told us at the Rivals 5-star, it's Jake Krell. And we said, just change it to Krull. You sound so much tougher when your name is Jake Krull, but it's Krell. And I think Texas is involved there. This is it feels like a Texas-Oklahoma battle to the end. Malachi Lee seems to love Michigan very, very much, but his relationship with Kyle Flood's still very important to him. It'll be interesting to see how that develops. As a Hawaiian kid, he can kind of go anywhere, a 5-hour flight or a 6.5-hour flight. It doesn't really matter at that point. So he can go anywhere. And Isaiah Williams has made 5 commitments already. So there is literally no predicting what happens there. So if Texas makes a late run, that feels like a sort of final December decision. So I think that they could still load up and finish toward that number 1 spot.
Yeah. Ole Miss currently holding down Isaiah Williams' 5th commitment. We'll see if that holds. I have a feeling it won't, so we'll keep watching that one. But, yeah, Texas could finish number 1 again. Texas fans, how you feel, and let us know. Is this back-to-back number 1 recruiting classes? All right, let's talk a little Notre Dame. Sort of like USC in the past, Notre Dame has had a hard time holding on to their top commitments as well, but this year feels different.
Yeah, it does, and it feels different because they played for the national championship last year. They have a lot of guys locked in, and something Devin Fitzgerald told me when he was committing, he said Notre Dame just recruits a different kind of kid now, like Caden Finley, Thomas Davis Jr., guys that want to be at Notre Dame. They feel like Notre Dame people. They actually, when they say that academics are important to them, it is. And I laughed because Fitzgerald said nobody lives in South Bend after they graduate. There's nothing to do there. But he said that, those 4 years and going there and seeing all the alumni that come back to the games and the practices, it's really just something super special. And not only just having a good season, but going to play for that Natty, I think, was really important to a lot of the kids. Where it gets interesting is if Notre Dame comes back to earth a little bit. They start with Miami and Texas A&M. That potentially could be 0-2. We'll see. I mean, it could be 2-0. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, exactly. But as Penn State is kind of running toward back to a college football playoff, does Joey O'Brien, does Grayson McHugh, do these guys from out of state in the Southeast get pressure from a lot of other programs? It'll be interesting to see how it plays out if Notre Dame isn't back in that college football playoff hunt.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, you're right about the type of player that they usually attract. However, this cycle, I feel like, yes, you are hearing about academics, but instead of just hearing about the finance program, you're hearing about the offense. You're hearing about the defense instead of just about what that alumni base can do for you when you graduate and you go get a real job. Like you're hearing way more about how exciting their offense is. And let's segue to that. I mean, coming off of a year that they had, I thought they were going to bring some playmakers in, but this recruiting class is built with all playmakers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what Marcus Freeman has realized that needs to be done. Like, how many years have we watched Notre Dame football where obviously running between the tackles works? They're going to have a great offensive line. They're going to have big bruising running backs. Right. That works. They're going to have awesome tight ends. But also you can add in there, some intriguing playmakers on the outside. Braden Robinson's a little mighty might guy that can get open against anybody and run. That guy just hasn't been at Notre Dame in the past in many ways. Caden Finley, is a Texas legacy. Could have been, at Texas. He goes there. Devin Fitzgerald is the son of maybe one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. He's going there. So they're adding pieces, not only, kind of big, slower outside receivers that we've known for years at Notre Dame, but guys that can get open in space and make plays. So you can still have that bruising running attack and that outlet to those awesome tight ends that they've had over the years. But you could also stretch the field and put a lot of stress on a defense that way too.
Yeah. If it was just about academics, you wouldn't see this many wide receivers all committed to play in the same class. If this was the ground and pound Notre Dame of the early 90s, I don't think you'd really see this many playmakers all, they're all sitting there saying like, playing time, yeah, there's going to be plenty of balls to go around. This is the way that they play offense now. So they're buying into whatever Marcus Freeman is selling right now. Speaking of buying in, there's a big one that's coming off the board on Thursday. Rivals number 2 ranked quarterback in the 2027 class, Teddy Gerard, is set to make his big decision right here on the Rivals Recruits channel on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. What do you like about Teddy Gerard from what you've seen this offseason?
Yeah, there's a ton to like about him, and he really kind of came on this offseason. You know, he had been to a bunch of camps and stuff and events, and you see him, you're like, wow, this kid can really play, really throw it. What I love about him is he has all the ability in the world. He carries himself with just the right amount of confidence. He's not so overconfident that he doesn't throw a lot of balls at events. He's not underconfident at all. He's just right there where he knows he's good. He can deliver the ball all over the field. And people like him, want to play with him. He gravitates, people gravitate toward him. What I also love about him is that, he shows up anywhere at any time, any place to compete. And quarterbacks these days don't do that as much as they used to. There used to be a day where quarterbacks didn't know each other and they wanted to go show that they were number one in the country. Now it's like, hey, I'm number one in the country and I know everybody because we're in a group chat and we all talk, and I don't need to do as many events. This guy will come anywhere to play anybody. I love that about him. And I think if he picks Notre Dame, it's going to be a perfect fit, just sort of mentality wise, about what he's going to be able to do there.
Well, there's some heavy competition. You got Georgia, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Penn State as the finalists. So we'll see what happens, but the expert picks have been rolling in favor of the Irish. All right, let's talk a little bit through the top 10 Rivals team rankings. So we got USC on top, Georgia sitting there at 2, Notre Dame having a great offseason at number 3, Texas 4, A&M 5. Bama rounded out by Michigan at number 10. Adam, what's the biggest surprise right now when you're looking at this top 10?
Yeah, I think it's Texas A&M. I mean, they lost 4 of their last 5 games. There was no real momentum going into the offseason. You kind of get the sense that they can emerge as that team in the SEC to watch, but we've been saying that since the Jimbo Fisher days. Like, yeah, they're going to be the team that really emerges and makes a threat. Texas went in there last year and really dominated them in that game, so that could hurt in-state recruiting. But they've been phenomenal on the recruiting trail. And a lot of kids say that just Mike Elko's genuineness, and of course NIL is playing a factor. Let's not be silly, but the relationships that Mike Elko and his staff built have been huge. To go into Southern California, to get Brandon Arrington, to beat Oregon for him, to beat Georgia and Clemson for Bryce Perry Wright. A lot of people thought KJ Edwards was going to Texas. He commits to Texas A&M after his visit. Loves the coaches there. To go back into Georgia for Tristan Givens and to keep Aaron Gregory and Jordan Carter. To go to South Carolina, Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is basically you drive over to Columbia and play for the Gamecocks. Tamarion Watkins commits to Texas A&M. So what Elko has done has been really smart. He's used a lot of in-state recruiting tactics to keep kids home, but then he's utilized a lot of those relationships that he built at Duke to stay in the Southeast, to get into Georgia and the Carolinas and get kids there. So I think if they have a good season, which is certainly in the cards, they're to get even better. But what they've done so far has been a surprise.
Yeah, my biggest surprise, I'll maybe go the opposite way on this. I'm a little surprised that Ohio State's sitting at number 9 right now, coming off a national championship. Not to say that they have a bad class by any means. It's a very good class, but missing on Jackson Cantwell, probably going to miss on Savion Hyder, missing on Carter Meadows. There's been some others. Just not really cleaning up the way that I thought they would coming off a national championship. And maybe they'll turn that around and maybe the season will be different and there's still plenty of time for some flips. But I think Ohio State sitting there at 9 is a bit surprising. So that leads me to my next question. Who's a team that you think not in the top 10 right now that will finish inside the top 10 when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I'm going to take a shot here and say Oklahoma, and
okay,
we're going to see how this responds on the message boards. But Jake Krell is very much within the distance there to go to Oklahoma, and I think that the Sooners have been pouring into him for months. When he feels maybe he's a little bit under recruited by some other schools, they've really made him a priority. I think that probably pays off in the end, unless Texas comes in there and swoops him up. Davion Gross is another kid. So if they can kind of get off the schneid here, where Venables is flip-flopping between 6 and 7 seasons and really sort of get something together, I think with John Mateer and a lot of other guys in that offense now, that can certainly help. There will be some flips down the stretch, but I think they can kind of make a little bit of a run if things could get interesting in Norman.
All right. I'm going to go with Miami. They're sitting there at number 11 right now, so it's not that big of a stretch to see them inside. But it could go one of two ways because it's been a very odd offseason, in my opinion. Landing Jackson Cantwell, which undoubtedly was a huge NIL play, a huge win for Miami to pull not just the number one prospect at the position, but in the country. But then after that, I mean, you're unable to keep Calvin Russell from Syracuse, Derek Cooper, J.J. Johnson. It's been miss after miss after miss for Miami. So I'm thinking like maybe something's up or they're just gearing up for a big run this fall. We'll see. I guarantee this. I don't think they finish at 11. They either finish well inside the top 10 or well outside the top 10. I don't know, but they won't finish at 11. What do you think about Miami recruiting this offseason? A little bit of a tease maybe after that Jackson Cantwell. We haven't seen much from them.
Yeah, I think so. And you're ponying up a lot of money for Jackson Cantwell. And I know he said that it didn't have to do with NIL. It had to do with the relationships. But come on, he had relationships everywhere. When you hire
Drew Rosenhaus sitting at the table if it's not about money.
Right. And like we've talked about before, this is July. Let the winnings get piled up a little bit more heading into the season. I think a lot of people want to see Mario Cristobal have a better season, and then the money comes in. There's not a shortage of money in South Florida. So I think that, a Derek Cooper is an interesting one. Like you said, does J.J. Johnson possibly stay closer to home and go across over to Miami? There are definitely ones that are on the radar to get. So I think I agree with you, Josh. I think they're a top 5-6 team if things go well, but if not, they could be 14, 15, 16.
Right. All right. Let's wrap this up. Let's give our predictions. How do you think the top 5 is going to look? Will it look exactly like it does right now with USC, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas, and Texas A&M? Take a stab at your top 5 when the ink dries.
Yeah, take a stab at what my 4-year-old is going to do today. I mean, there's so many months and so many games to be played, not only on the field, but in recruiting and what rev share looks like and what third-party NIL deals look like from Deloitte being approved or not approved. It's going to be a crazy fall, and I'm here for it all. I love it. I love the soap opera of it. I think it's so entertaining. I'm going to say USC sticks at number 1, and the reason is I just don't see a lot of guys flipping out of there if they put together a decent enough season. And NIL money is holding them sort of in place there. So I think it's going to go USC, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and I'm going to take your pick. I'm switching out Oregon. I'm putting Miami in there at number 5. I think they make a run late with a lot of South Florida kids. I think there's just too much pride in South Florida high school football. There are too many connections with that coaching staff to those guys, and there's just too much money floating around. I think Miami makes a run late and gets into that top 5.
Okay. I'm going to go Texas number 1. I'm going to go USC number 2, Georgia at 3. I'm not bumping Notre Dame out of the top 5. I'm going to put them at 4 to finish. And then my 5th spot, man, this is hard. I don't know if I want to go. I'll go Oregon. I'll go Oregon over Alabama in my 5 spot. But this is hard. This is going to be like a game of musical chairs all the way to the end. You're not going to know who's finishing where until the music stops. Adam Gorney, thank you for filling in for Steve Wiltfong on a glorious Monday morning on the Wiltfong Whiparound.
Of course.